Hello, folks. We're just going to let people trickle in, and we'll get rolling here. I already see a few people in. Let's get oriented. Where's everybody coming from? Drop it in. I'm in Toronto. Bryan,
I'm in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all over the globe, aren't we?
I love it. Who else we got here? Give it a couple seconds. Let people jump in.
Man, we're gonna have fun today, everyone. So Tyler and I,
it's gonna be the most fun.
The most fun.
The most fun. There you go. See people jumping on. All right, everybody. We're a minute in, which means I think we get started and people can join as they join. What do you think, Bryan? Fair game?
Yeah, of course, man. There's so much to do.
All right. Well, welcome everybody that is here right now. Today, we are going to talk about scaling through partner-led growth. I am joined with Bryan from GTM Partners, and my name is Tyler Calder. So I head up PartnerStack. Both of us are kind of going to jump in and out and chat through a few things, but really, really excited to have Bryan here. Bryan, we've been working together for a little while now, diving into some partner-led research, and Bryan's been talking to a lot of people in our customer base, out of our customer base, and you've gleaned some pretty cool insight around everything that's happening around partner-led growth. Is that fair to say? Is that a fair statement, Bryan?
That's a good statement. We've been having fun. I've got to spend a lot of and I got to spend time with your customers in person, even, which I'll share one of the stories later. Yeah, we've got to go deep on PartnerStack and work with Tyler and the exec team on initiatives. It's been tremendous. Love what you guys do. It's so cool.
Love it. All right, we're going to unpack all of that. Just some housekeeping. So we are absolutely recording the session. We will send it out tomorrow with some recap notes. If you have any questions as we're going through, drop them into the Q&A function and we will get to them. A bunch of you also submitted questions upon registering for the event. So thank you for that. Very much appreciated. And I think we'll probably answer a bunch of those as we go, but any we miss, we'll come back to. So the plan for today, I'm going to hand it over to Bryan in a second here. And Bryan's going to chat through some of their research on partner-led growth. So again, Bryan coming from Go-to-Market Partners and just doing some really, really incredible work out in the market, talking about all of the various go-to-market motions that are out there. And then, I'm going to talk a little bit about just getting started, what we see from our customers, the types of impact that they're experiencing moving into this partner-led motion, and then we'll open it up into a Q&A. So that is the plan. Bryan, I'm going to hand it over to you. Let me know if I missed anything in your introduction.
Well, I'll just add one little thing, which is I love go-to-market, and we want to make it simple. And today we're gonna have fun unpacking this new area of partner-led growth. And what makes me excited about it is because I've been in your shoes before. I've built startup companies. I've built Series A, B, C companies, 100 million, 0 to 100 million a few times, and also been at IBM. So I've just seen it all. And the one thing in common is we struggle to align go-to-market, period. Anywhere you go, it's a struggle. And so at GTM Partners, we're just on a mission to make it simple. So today you're going to see some of our frameworks. We just like to find ways to make it easier for people to figure out what they should do, solve those problems, and align and execute. So that's about me a bit. All right. Well, let's jump in, Tyler.
Let's do it.
So y'all are probably familiar with go-to-market motions like inbound and outbound, the most common of the motions. And people, no matter where you go, every company's running inbound or outbound, right? And there's obviously some companies are doing PLG, but PLG even needs some inbound. And companies that do PLG, like in terms of product-led growth, there's two PLGs now, so have to get used to that one. But product-led growth, companies, you'll find that a company might start product-led growth, but after a while, when they start breaking into the enterprise in a digital selling motion, that they actually need teams of sellers to expand the deals, unify a bunch of separate contracts. Like they actually have to do outbound. And so what I want to kind of open your mind to today is that partner-led growth is just as important as inbound or outbound. And in fact, in our research, 66% of the companies we surveyed, 66% of them said partner is a part of their growth strategy. And I think what I also want to help people recognize is, like, I'm sure, I mean, we had every company I've ever been at, we always had, we need a channel, we need a reseller, we need this, we need that. And we always had someone, at least someone, or a team of people that were focused on partner. But what was always lacking in my 20 plus years was just like a cohesive strategy of the role partners play to drive revenue for the business. And it oftentimes ended up being like a side story or like this team over in this one department. And I just think that those were the most ineffective ways to use this motion. So our job in this research that's coming out, I'm going to share, you're going to get a taste of some new research today. So this is brand new stuff, Tyler. And next week it actually hits and it's going to come out the full 20-page guide. But you're going to get a few preview today. But I hope you all take away that, like, if you reimagine your partner approach as a go-to-market motion, and then think about it just like you do inbound and outbound, where you need all the teams working together to make it work, you're going to drive material revenue. And we're going to show you some examples of that today. So let's jump in and let's start to look at what's possible when we reimagine this. Now, a lot of companies have partner teams, partner programs. Again, the question is, are they part of the strategy or are they part of the tactics, right? And so, if you're doing partner level as a tactic, like, oh, it's like, let's have this like one thing and we might get some deals through it. Like, that's fine. You could start there. But what we're going to show you, and I know what the PartnerStack team does with their platform, is just opens it up to be a major growth engine. So here's some of the benefits. So look at some of the data points here. This is from research we've done. So when you have a partner-led growth motion and you bring in a partner that's going to help you drive business, partner-sourced business has shorter time to close, okay, 11% shorter. And then depending on whether it's partner sourced or partner influenced, and there's kind of a nuance there, but you're going to see a dramatic improvement on your win rates, right? So your ability to close. Now think about in today's market, the number one reason deals don't close is they go no decision. Okay, buyers are basically stuck today because they fear. They're afraid because the CFO has said, stop spending and everything we spend better work. And there's so much scrutiny. So people are looking to mitigate their risks. Buyers are looking to mitigate their risks. It's not that they don't want to spend. It's not that they don't want technology and solutions and new ways of working. They do. They very much do, because they're struggling to build their own pipeline. But you have to prove to them that you can mitigate those risks, that you can get them ROI quickly, that it will work. Oh my gosh, partner. Like, if you think about it, going in with a partner is like probably your number one way to mitigate someone's apprehension to buy. So I think that's why it drives win rates up so much. And then some of the PartnerStack, Tyler, your guys' customers, and these are just two of them. And I'll share call rails later in the call. But Monday.com, one of your customers, we interviewed them. Phenomenal program. Oh my gosh. But they've built a partner program that has, the revenue produced from partners has grown 200% in the last year or two. So really amazing. Apollo, same thing. And they're both doing different kinds of partnerships. So partnerships isn't a one size fits all. There's like many flavors, and Tyler and I are going to share that. So just some of the highlights. If you're leaning on like we should do more partner led, these are some of the metrics that can help you go there. Tyler, anything you want to add here?
No, it's great. I mean, all I'll say, and I'm going to just poke a little bit of fun, Bryan reminded me that I should put my phone on airplane mode, and then perhaps forgot to do it himself. But that's okay.
Yeah, you heard my phone ringing?
I love it. It's good.
Good catch. Okay. So let's break it down. All right. So this is a simple, you can do more than this, but this is a really simple way to think about this to get started. There's 5 types of indirect selling. So when we're talking partners, we're really talking about getting other people to help you sell. And if you can't get the distribution you need from a direct selling motion, partners, right? Partners is a phenomenal way to get and expand the way you grow and build a company. So there's different types. And a lot of times in companies, we just kind of blur all these words. We're like, we do channel, we do ecosystem, and people don't really know, well, what's one, what's the other. So in our guide that's coming out next week, we just set out to define them all and just give you more clarity. In the guide, we've got the key metrics you would track. We've got examples of for each of these, but here's just some of the definitions. And some of them work really well for complex sell. Some of them work really well for transactional, like affiliate. A lot of times affiliate is used in a low complexity sales cycle, like highly transactional, sometimes freemium or lower priced, right? That's just an example. But it's good to be clear, like, given the segment you're going to sell to and the product you're selling, which of these or multiples should you use, right? And if you just answer it like that, always think about the buyer, the segment you're selling to, and the product you're selling, and it'll usually map really clearly to one or two of these things as like the primary way you can juice the revenue from that motion. And then near bound is a really important concept. So we don't see near bound as like, it's not like a channel or ecosystem or near bound. Near bound is a lot like account-based marketing. It's a philosophy that sits on top of the things you're doing. So if I have a channel program or an ecosystem program or a referral program, I can make those programs much better if I run the near bound philosophy and playbook. And near bound is essentially this: we can work better together. So rather than having some channel partner that's just off on an island trying to sell our stuff, if we share our data, we can actually see that, hey, I've got some deals over here. You actually know those people better than I do. And you've got some opportunities over here, and we actually know them better, or our customer does, or another partner does. And so it's really relationship selling at its best. And it just needed a new name and an umbrella to really help people understand what's possible. And I think it's a good concept. But anyway, so you're going to identify the type of indirect selling partner programs you should have, and then you can improve the way you execute those by building relationships and doing things like near bound. Now, if you want to make sure you get the guide that comes out, it should go live on this Monday. If not, it'll be the next Monday, but I think it'll hit this Monday. Hit gtmonday.substack.com. All of our research is free. It's always data driven. It's always frameworks. It's no fluffy stuff, no cartoons and bunnies and cats. It's like real stuff. So we're nerds. We geek out on this stuff. So feel free to subscribe, and then you'll always get the latest. Okay, let's hit the next one. Just a quick set of data. I always like looking at like, what technology are people buying? Okay. And so we have a partnership with G2. So we always look at the raw data. And I was looking at the intent data. So this is people going to G2 and then looking for a certain technology or type of technology, or maybe they typed in PartnerStack. It's looking at all that, and it's got an algorithm, and it turns it into intent signal. So in this last quarter, okay, there were 50,000 intent visits for partner-related technology. 50,000. 50,000. And if you go back to 2022, it was like 200. Okay. So, and in fact, at 50,000, it's kind of on the same ballpark as things that are 20 years old, like CRM and marketing automation. So it's just like I mean, we got to open our eyes and realize companies have pain. They're looking to build pipeline. They're realizing that they need help, and they're looking to vendors and technology to help them. And so partner management, affiliate, and influencer marketing, these are all the categories on G2. And, there's a lot of vendors that do like niche things and one-off things. And then there's, PartnerStack, you guys, Tyler, you guys have a holistic approach. And when we talk to your customers, it's like some of them are killing it with affiliate, some of them are doing reseller, some of them have ISV. Like it's across that. And then, some of these technologies will help you manage the program. Some of them help you find partners. Some of them help you market to partners. And then some do all. Like, PartnerStack is sort of an end-to-end solution, if you will. So it's kind of doing all those pieces. So I always like this. There's definitely a trend here. There's definitely the market is definitely struggling and needs help. So that's why we see this happening in G2. All right. So how do you know if you should do this, right? How do you know if, like, even if you have a partner team or person today, how do you know if you should actually make it a company growth initiative, right? So this is a quick assessment. I'm not going to go through it now, but you can look at some of these questions. The more yeses you have, the more like hit you over the head. You should be doing a partner-led growth strategy, not just like a campaign or a partner program, but like actually build it out deeper. But just some of these things, it's like, the second one, can your product benefit from the data of another solution, right? Or, when I think about like account-based marketing, right? So anyone buying account-based marketing, when they buy the software for ABM, they also want intent data, because like you need both, right, at the same time. And so not all solutions package them up both. And so that would be an area where two vendors are better together, right? So anyways, you can look through these questions, just the degree of these and how many you have would suggest the level at which you should be really leaning in on a partner-led growth approach. Tyler, anything that any of this stand out to you, or what do you think? I mean, I don't know. What do you think about the assessment?
Yeah, I love the assessment. I think it helps guide people, and that's certainly needed based on a lot of the questions that we field. What I think is interesting when you look at this is there's different functions in here, right? And I find that's one of the challenges with partnerships right now is if you're in a partnership role, you probably identify as a certain type of partner leader, right? I'm an affiliate manager, and that's my domain. Or I work with resellers, and that's my domain. Versus this holistic view of, no, it's this indirect motion, and we should be thinking about it as a single strategy. And there's different tactics within, but if we can get a holistic view that rolls up into, a revenue plan, I think that's how you start to have serious impact as a partnerships leader, right? And I think, that's what we hear a lot of is I'm a partnership leader and I can't get the budget I need. I can't get the resources I need. And typically it's because the aperture is a little bit narrow, right? You kind of open that up. So what I'm looking at here, if you look at that very last question, would you benefit from having a wider audience of buyers for your PLG or freemium product? Very different than does your product naturally benefit from integrations, usage of other solutions. Different in the sense of if I'm reading that, I'm going to interpret that differently based on my function. Go through this and think, oh, shoot, you know what? Like maybe there's some play here on the affiliate side that I've been ignoring. How can I tap into that? Right. And so I love it because if you open up kind of your worldview a little bit, it might guide you down some paths that are maybe unexpected, have been ignored. So I love it. I think it's cool.
That's great. I love that too. You just got me thinking, like, it's not that, most companies have limited resources. So we pick our best places to grow. We pick the segments we think we can succeed the most in. There might be an adjacent segment or a down market segment or an up market segment that you just can't afford to do on your own. The CAC's, the cost of acquisition is too high. It just doesn't make sense. You're not good at it or whatever, or you're just not present there. Man, partnership all the way. Okay, totally. Let's hit one more model here. So now the question is, well, should you do referrals? Should you do channel, like affiliate? Like, how do I know which things I should do? So again, after you've kind of identified the segment you're looking at and the buyers in it, right? now, and the product you're selling to them. Now kind of look at this 2x2 and answer these questions, right? Is the product you're selling something that just is really a standalone? Like people are just going to buy it no matter what. And like, it doesn't matter what other technology they have. It's just something they want. And so like, I think of things like sales rep tools, like something a seller would use themselves independently, like a Vidyard or something like that. Perfect example. Vidyard has a phenomenal affiliate program. It's a product that just can just go on its own and people just plug it in. But now Vidyard also works really well with things like sales cadence tools, like a sales loft or something like that, right? And so now on the better together scale, you could say, well, Vidyard could be an affiliate program, which they have. They could also create an ecosystem where they're part of the sales tools that reps use, where video becomes something that makes those tools better, right? So now the better together, you can see where a company like Vidyard might actually be running multiple programs at the same time. Now, the other part of the equation is how complex is it to get value, right? So if I think of like, an ERP software or even account-based marketing software, it takes a lot of like change. Like you got to change your behavior. You got to change the way you work. You got to convince sales and marketing people to work together. You got to convince people to follow a process. Like, when CRM first came out, it was highly complex. Now it's so bread and butter that we don't think of it as complex anymore. But back in the 2000s, early 2000s, getting a team to move off the Rolodex to a CRM was very complex. So the more complex it is to describe the value and get buyers to embrace it and use it, puts you over to the right. So if you really require another vendor to go to market, like your solution only works when they have another solution in place and the value is complicated, you're going to be in that top right quadrant. You're going to want to build like a channel program or an ecosystem. And all through that, the value you can create through these programs, like in terms of generating significant revenue, you can improve that as you layer in the near bound concepts, right? And so near bound even becomes more and more valuable as you're kind of moving up in this equation. All right, well, that's the nerdy part for me.
The nerdy part is the best part, right?
Yeah, I know. When you follow, I'm sure you've seen it, Tyler. We have no shortage of frameworks and 2x2s and assessments. So every topic, we always find a way to visualize it because it just makes business decision making easier.
Yeah, I mean, I'll happily vouch for the work that you guys are doing and what you're putting out in the market. So if folks here haven't checked out GTM Partners, like absolutely check out their resources. They're incredibly helpful. We're in the midst of our own planning for 2024, and you guys have been a huge help with some of your frameworks. So I suggest people check it out. I'm gonna drive a little bit here, and I'm gonna move quickly, but there's a few things I wanted to touch on. So, PartnerStack, and I'm not going to go super deep into PartnerStack as a platform, but one of the things that we're really trying to focus on is like, how do you democratize the channel? We sort of set out to build a platform that I would suggest is very much trusted by the enterprise, and loved by startups and mid-market. And one of the ways we set out to do that was this realization of, hey, if you have any sort of partner-led motion, you're probably pretty siloed, right? You have, like I mentioned before, you have an affiliate manager doing their affiliate thing, and they have an affiliate platform. Maybe you have some sort of influencer motion with a separate influencer platform or advocacy platform, right? And then you certainly have like some sort of separate reseller kind of PRM. And so what we set out to do was, how do you give people a platform that enabled you to bring all of that, all of those partner-led kind of tactics together under one roof. So that's kind of what we set out to do. And one of the big reasons we did it was because we started to realize, growth through partnerships really just used to be reserved for the big folks, right? The Microsofts of the world. And, a big part of that was because they had the brand, right? They had the tooling, they had the resources, they had the people that they could throw at it. But then you saw folks like HubSpot as a startup really lean into partnerships, and that drew in more partners into the ecosystem. And now there were more partners that vendors could tap into. And so where I'm going with all of this is like there's an absolute shift that you're seeing in the partnerships world over the past 5 years or so. And I'm not going to go through this chart in great detail, because I think if you're in the space, you're feeling it and you recognize it, which is, hey, we're moving from this world where partnerships was a little bit, certainly held to the enterprise, but also very, very relationship driven. There was some lacking of data. There was a lot of talk about revenue influence versus directly sourced revenue. And so you're seeing that shift, right? And it's kind of the same shift that marketing went through about 10 years ago, where if you're driving a partner-led motion, you certainly got to be focused on what's the revenue you're sourcing, what's the impact that you're having to the business, how are you kind of leading from the front and driving the strategy, and you sort of need a modern platform to do that. So that's sort of what we set out to try and build. And Bryan, I know you've mentioned some of our enterprise accounts, but we have a number of up and coming startups, mid-market accounts, that their first step into partnerships was with a platform like PartnerStack, which enabled them to do a lot of testing and experimentation, right? So that idea of, hey, what is the right tactic, the right approach for you? There's going to be some figuring it out, right? Is it affiliate? Should you be looking at some kind of referral motion? Like, what is that entry point? And so taking that approach of, hey, we're going to test, we're going to experiment, we're going to figure it out. That's what a lot of our customers have done to really solidify what their strategy looks like. And then they start to layer on, right? Maybe they start with affiliate and move into referral and then reseller. Some come in, ready for reseller right out of the gate. But you want to make sure that you're properly equipped to do so. And then, what we see with our most successful customers is they really think about, well, how do we align kind of partner program type to what our need is through the funnel, right? There's a need to drive demand, call that awareness, but like that's driving high intent demand, right? And that's really what I like to refer to it as, because awareness is like, I could be aware of you, but do I actually have intent? Do I have a need? And so you can tap into something like a large group of affiliates. We have customers with 5,000 affiliates, 10,000 affiliates, driving this high intent demand into their company. And then, really strong referral partners that are driving incredibly warm leads, and resellers that are helping to co-sell and close deals. Not to mention, the value of having partners working with you post-sale, helping with retention and net revenue retention, all that. So again, my point here is not to go into a great detail, but to suggest, you zoom out a little bit and you start to realize that, hey, I can attach partners through my funnel. I can attach partners to my outbound motion, my inbound motion. That's again, this idea of like, how do we get a seat at the table as partnership leaders? How do we like really have a say on what that revenue plan looks like? It's by zooming out and looking at kind of the universe of impact that we could have, because it's quite big. And then, Bryan, you touched on this, which I think is great. Where do you start? Because that's one of the most common questions we get. And I love this framework, and it's, something we've been introducing to our customers. I was also on a call with a partner leader late last week, and we were talking about, okay, affiliate, but how do I identify the right type of affiliate, or how do I identify the right type of, referral partner? And so, I didn't spend too much time trying to make this pretty, but this is what we started to map out, which I think is a little bit of an interesting thought exercise, where you start to say, well, who's my end customer? Who am I selling to? Right? So is my target customer actively looking for a solution like mine? Or maybe they're not, right? Maybe I'm trying to build a new category. They don't even know this thing exists, right? This is a net new solution we're bringing into market to solve an existing problem, but people aren't aware of it. I'm sure you experienced this with ABM in the early days, right? You had to create that demand. And then you look at, well, could most companies buy my product, or do I sell to a narrow customer profile? And so you start to look at this and you kind of start to say, okay, my target audience, they're actively in market, right? They're actively shopping. They know what kind of technology they want to buy to solve their problems. But I sell to a very narrow customer profile, right? So you could say, well, okay, there's going to be like niche affiliates and niche resellers that you can tap into. And so the example I used with this person I was chatting with, one of my previous roles was in travel technology. And you could say, hey, we're going to work with people that are in the travel space as a category. You could get really niche though and say, well, we're going to go work with affiliates or referral partners that specialize in adventure travel and luxury hiking experiences, right? And so you want to figure out what is your B2B equivalent of that as you start to create, like, what's your target list of partner type? And so for me, I think it starts with, again, like, who's that end customer? Who's that audience you're trying to get the attention of, trying to get the trust of? And then you can zero in on the right type of partner. So a lot of nuances in there.
Before you, I gotta say, oh man, I want to add to your model. You can have
do
this. The top layer, when they're in market, they understand the space. You're harvesting demand, and so you're using those opportunities to get affiliates, niche, referral, distribution. Just get more distribution. It's the demand's there. Get distribution. So that's harvesting demand. We talk about create and harvest all the time in our stuff, but I never applied it to this. I love it on your model here. The bottom half is creating demand. Like you've got to build trust and advocacy. You've got to get more people talking about this new way of working. And so in that model, you're looking for people who can help you create and establish identity and trust, and more people saying that this is the better way of doing something. So anyways, there you can put it on there. You can have it, no charge.
Perfect. I love it. And bang on as well. Love it. So I'm gonna fly through because everybody's gonna get this deck after. And so you can see all the metrics I'm about to fly through here. But what's the impact that we see? And Bryan, I'm gonna hand it over to you in a minute because you've done a lot of analysis here as well. But I think we're all seeing this. So if folks aren't familiar with the company called Vendor, check them out. They publish some really great data every quarter on what's going on in the sales world, what technology are people buying. They just released their Q3 data. But what they saw was for the past few quarters, ACVs were actually decreasing quarter over quarter, right? A lot of discounting happening, like people doing whatever they could to go out and just try to close revenue. I think they're seeing it bounce back in Q3 a little bit, which is great, right? We're starting to see the market bounce back a little bit. But what we saw was deals that were partner driven, they actually saw their ACVs going up quarter over quarter, right? So partners bring in that built-in trust, that built-in credibility. You're not immediately going to a discounting conversation. You're going to a value conversation in a lot of cases. So that's, something that we've seen over the past year through this market is, for a lot of our customers, their partner source revenue is the revenue that's really either helping them hit their target, exceed target, or just, quite frankly, stay afloat. And so, what I always suggest is like, now's the time to think about investing and leaning in, because when you come out the other side of this market, if you're ready, like you're going to explode in your growth, right? And so, for that to happen, I mentioned this idea of giving a seat at the revenue table a couple times, and I'll come back to it here. Like, we got to be having revenue conversations with our CFOs, right? In this market, the CFO is typically the main buyer at this point. And so, the way I like to level set conversations with our CFO when I'm looking for budget is, what do I think the upside is, and what do I think it's going to cost us to acquire $1 of new revenue? Like, I just try to normalize everything against that. Like, what is it going to cost us to acquire $1 of revenue? And so when we look at the typical SaaS company, they're spending about $1.18 to acquire $1 of revenue, right? And in the good old days of SaaS, you're hoping LTV plays out and it all makes sense and it's good. And you know what? Even if you lose a little bit of money, it's all about the land grab and get as many users as possible, which is great. What we see through partner driven though is about 90 cents to acquire $1 of revenue. And so if you bring this type of kind of normalized view to your CFO, like this is how you start to have conversations around, like, give me a little bit more budget, give me a little bit more resources. Like, here's what I want to test and experiment with next. And the impact is there, right? So that's what we see a lot of our top customers doing, is having these types of conversations with their financial leader. And then we see this to be true basically across every category. So fintech, HR tech, productivity. What holds to be true is on average about a 25% decrease in CAC coming through a partner-led motion versus your typical like inbound, outbound combo, which is pretty cool. So again, I'll share all of this data. You'll have it. You can click through to get the details of where these numbers are coming from. But Bryan, I'd love to have you close it out. Now you did a little bit of research here on kind of numbers you were seeing talking to some of our customers.
Yeah. And man, I'm just a huge proponent of efficient growth. I think everyone's talking about it right now. And so the fact that you can run partner programs that can actually be efficient from the beginning, right? Like is incredible. Before I talk about the stats, I just want to say this. Why aren't more companies having a more focused revenue coming from partner programs? And I think the answer is we've struggled in the history of business. We've struggled to scale them. We've struggled to make them repeatable. Like we get it working with one partner, but not the other 10. And we don't know how to measure it. So like partners doesn't even know how to kind of like put their arms around what happened. So I think that's what's leading the trend of all the people saying, well, we know they work. We know we have to figure out how to get better at it. And that's what's driving the trend in adoption of partner tech. So we do these things. They're called ROI studies. We did one for PartnerStack. And we go and we talk to a bunch of their customers. We watch a bunch of customer videos and testimonials of their customers. They provide a bunch of, Tyler and team provide us a bunch of information and data. And then we pour through all the raw G2 data. So not just the reviews, but like people answer tons of questions that don't show up in the review. And we look at all that and we analyze it. So here's some of the highlights. Okay. Look at the chart at the bottom right. People who use partner technology, when you compare vendor against vendor, PartnerStack has the fastest time to ROI. I mean, in a market where like you have to mitigate risk and prove value quickly, it's just light years above. It's 10 months faster than some of, and these are big players down here. These are incumbents. These are people who've been doing partner tech for a lot of years. So PartnerStack, you guys are killing it on getting in and proving value quickly to customers. I think another big thing I loved, and I didn't realize this going into it, but a lot of the tech players just provide the tech to manage the programs. But PartnerStack actually has a network. So it's kind of like a two parts of the company. You guys actually open up the door and let people find their ideal fit partners, affiliates, referrals, resellers, whatever, to actually then go and acquire them. So if you're looking to acquire your partner program, we just thought that was huge. That was 80,000 active partners. Like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I had that when I was building other companies. And then we looked at like specific companies. We looked at what specifically we interviewed people and, hey, what did it do for you? Some were like, it saves us time. Others love that it makes it easier to activate partners. Like you can get them up and productive faster. So they felt like they had a higher percentage of productive partners producing revenue. Everyone's looking to grow the revenue produced by partners, right? Because that's the whole point behind it. If you want to go to the next slide, Tyler, I just point out, and we did this, it's a whole guide. You can get it. I don't know, Tyler, you guys could probably send it out as a follow-up or something with the recording. You can send them the actual ROI study. But this next slide, so CallRail is a customer of PartnerStack, and CallRail, Bailey was in Los Angeles for our go-to-market roadshow we just did last week. So I actually got to hear her present on her partner program, and she was obviously raving about you guys, Tyler. She loves it. She's a huge fan of yours. But fan aside, look at what she's been able to do. Okay. So the top section is all the ways they've saved times. They've been able to automate a bunch of stuff. Many of these companies, the problem with scaling programs is the payments and tracking who gets what and did you do it or not. So having a solution that just automates that was huge for her. But I love the second bullet about the partnership program itself. They added 1,800 partners to their program in 2 years. So I promise you, having built companies before, there's just no way. I don't think anyone could do that without software. Like I don't think you could possibly find a way to manage. Maybe if you were Microsoft, you could, but it's a different ecosystem, different world. So I thought that was really cool, really impressive. And again, automating the onboarding, the application process, getting partners to work on your behalf. Like one part is just getting them to sign up and agree. But in most partner programs, the partners don't produce because they don't get set up for success. So you have to enable them. You have to teach them. You have to provide them the materials. And I think that the marketing component that you guys offer helps, do that for Bailey and her team. And then the last thing I think is really cool. I used to think of partnerships as you have a reseller program and that's it. Or you have a channel and that's it. And that's kind of 20 years ago. That's just people just kind of had one way and they would do that thing. But Bailey and her team, over the last couple of years have built out multiple types of programs. So they have strategic and tech partnerships. They have a customer referral program. They have verticalized in different verticals. They have the different affiliate programs they're running. So anyways, just a huge success. It was fun to hear her actually speak and be excited about what you guys are doing, Tyler. But yeah, you guys can get access to this. It's in the ROI study we did for PartnerStack, and there's the link. There you go. There's the link to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryan. For everyone here, thank you for your time. We have a few minutes. Love to answer any questions folks might have. Feel free to drop them in the chat, drop them into the Q&A. And if not, you're free to leave as well.
Yeah, give Tyler a hard question. I want to hear a good one.
Yeah, give me a good one so I can pass it off to Bryan. Cool. Not seeing anything come in. I think based on the questions that came in on the forum, I believe we addressed most of it, but we're certainly going to send out the recording. We'll do a little bit of a written recap with the main takeaways. Bryan, huge thank you for joining us today. Huge thank you for the research that you folks are doing into the space. I think it's definitely needed. There's one. What's your principal advice to create an ecosystem? Oh man, I can go, and then I'd love Bryan's thoughts on this. My advice always starts with the simplest, the simplest, most obvious statements in the world. And so for me, it's, what are you trying to do? Right? When you say, you know what, we're going to go out and create an ecosystem. Well, what are you doing that for? Who are you doing it for? Right? So I always go back to the customer. Who are my customers? What are their needs? And then if you look at Bryan, your kind of matrix there, right, you can start to, and your kind of questionnaire, right? You can start to say, okay, well, could my customers benefit from integrating a data set into our product that we don't have access to? If so, okay, cool. I'm going to start there. Does the company need an injection of high intent demand? Right. And, maybe it's not a true ecosystem at that point, but maybe the best bet and the best impact is start with some kind of affiliate program. Right. So I would just start with your customers. What's the value that they're looking for? And what's the better together story and the types of partners that can help you fulfill on that promise? And then, certainly that also needs to align with whatever the business objectives are. But to me, I always start there, as simple as it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, two good. I'll just add two good examples of ecosystem, right? Snowflake, which is a database kind of technology platform, Salesforce, obviously, HubSpot has a great ecosystem. A lot of the marketing automation companies had great ecosystems. And it really comes down to like, where's the center of gravity? And are you the center or are you around it? And then what are all the adjacent markets and niche use cases that you can support that are around you? So I would basically draw a box of my company and say, hey, we're in this category. Then I would go around it and say, what are the adjacent categories that we make better or that make us better? And that's how I would start to decide, like, would ecosystem be the right play for you? Do you need to be part of someone else's ecosystem? And that could be a great answer. Or do you need your own? Do you need to be the center of gravity? And if so, could you justify it? Could you actually map out an adjacent market that would really benefit from being part of your ecosystem? So that's just some things that I would be thinking about.
Love it. There's another good question here. How long does it take to start seeing results? Very good question. I can go first as well. And Bryan, if you want to tack on after. Here's what I've observed in the space is most of the conversations I hear from partner leaders is this is going to take a long time, right? It's going to take a long time to see results. And, I think that the challenge with that is the challenge I saw when I first started in marketing, hearing marketers say, well, marketing takes a really long time. It takes a really long time to build a brand. It takes a really long time for that brand equity to pay off. And then you had a new crop of marketers come in and say, it does take time, but I think there's some stuff we can do right now to drive impact. And so what I challenge people to think through is if you're telling yourself the story that it takes time, it's going to take time. If you think about, I got to run 2 streams, I got to run the long-term, like this is the strategic play. It is going to take time. Some of these relationships, absolutely, you got to lean into. It might take a year, a couple of years to really see them come to fruition. But then I'd also challenge myself to say, what's the most immediate impact that I can drive, right? And so I would look at, hey, you know what? There's probably a bunch of customers that would love to refer people into our business. That's an indirect motion, right? So how do you set up some sort of customer advocacy or referral program, right? And how do you take ownership of that and drive results through that? There's probably some affiliates out there that are already talking about what we do. How do I tap into some of that? Right? I would literally go to Google, type in what I do, some of the things I know my customers are searching, see who's already writing about it. They already have a presence online. Can I do something with them? Right? Can we hook up and create some sort of motion together? And so I would challenge myself to think, how do I do both? Right? Because again, going back to that marketing parallel of marketing going through this transformation 10, 15 years ago, I think that's what marketing learned to do really well is I got to do both. I got to do the long term and I got to have in-quarter impact. And when you take that perspective, plus you put in the work, right? I should put in the caveat, like you're doing the work. Like we've seen customers that are able to drive impact within the quarter that they start. But again, they're putting in the work, they're getting focused, they're very deliberate on what they're trying to do. So that's the way I try to suggest people think about it.
Yeah. And it just, I love all that. And it depends on the complexity of what it is you're trying to arrange, right? If it's as simple as a reseller or affiliate, not that they're always as simple, but in most cases they can be made simple. Before you build the whole big old program, just go get an affiliate and watch it work and get it working in isolation with someone that you trust. You only have to get a few deals flowing before the whole company is going to be like, oh my gosh, let's do that. Let's lean into it, right? And then now you have a little bit of a working model. You've tested it. Now you can start to build something for scale. So it's like building a product. Like you don't build scale into a product from day one. You got to know what problem to solve. You got to test to see if you're in the right space. So I would just be inquisitive. I'd be, creative. I would just be out there trying to find, hey, I think this will work. Let me get an example of it working, and then be off to the races.
Love it. Love it. I used to work, the only thing I'll tack on there, I know we're running out of time, but I used to work agency side for almost a decade. And the first thing I would do with my new clients is like, what are the quickest wins I can make? Because those quick wins are then going to give me the credibility, the goodwill, to say, okay, now I think we should do this thing, but the payoff, it might be a little bit of time, might be 12 months, might be 18 months. But they've seen that I can also, I can deliver, I can have the impact. I got my wins on the board. And so I think that the same is true here a little bit. I see a lot of people go to their boards, their leadership team and say, we're going to stand up this program. It's going to take 18 months. You've lost them right there.
Yeah. No
right?
one's waiting 18 months today.
No.
Like no one can afford it.
No. So you want to figure out how you just stagger those and take that approach.
I mean, that's what I like about I think PartnerStack reduces the risk. Like I think you guys have solved so many of the things that take 18 months to set up and figure out are now just part of the solution. It's just part of the buttons in the interface. So I just feel like you've taken a lot of the risk out. You've given people a way to find a network to sell into. And I think people could iterate a lot faster than I don't think we could iterate that fast, 10 years ago. I just don't think it was so much complexity back then. So yeah.
Totally. Love it. On that, thank you, Bryan. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time that you spent with us today. We will send out the recording in the next day or so. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to hit me up, Tyler@partnerstack.com. You got a bunch of links from Bryan. I definitely suggest you subscribe and check out their content. It's fantastic. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.